Quality of the management of a research project. It's a critical thing. If you have good quality management of a project, it will lead to accurate results and a conclusion that's valid. If you have poor quality management, as one might suspect here, that can lead to inaccurate results and then a conclusion that's invalid. But as the reader of those two conclusions, one never knows about this, and one never knows which conclusion is true, because you can't see the quality of the management, its impact on the study itself. Does this happen in research? I would suspect so. Can one determine the quality of the management of a research project? It's elusive. Most of the time we rely on the reputation of the author, the institute where the work was done, the funding agency, maybe the impact factor of the journal. But for the most part, one would think you cannot determine this in a research project. What I'd like to share with you is a story in which the answer is yes, one can determine the quality of the management. Let me show you how. To begin, what I'd like to do is break management down in two components to compare and contrast the issues. One I'm going to call soft variables and the other is data. Soft variables are things such as enthusiasm and demeanor of the research team, maybe the compliance of patients in a clinical project, or maybe the accuracy of the calibration of laboratory instruments. All those are hard to measure and thus hard to control. But a good research leader will know to try to minimize those so they don't impact on the study variables. Data, on the other hand, is the most manageable aspect of a research project. And why is that? Data is math. Math is reproducible, absolute, and the truth. An example of that would be 2 + 2 = 4, no matter who does it, where it's done in the world, or how often it's done. Data, math, very manageable. Let me give you an example of each of these. Project management dealing with soft variables. So if we gave the blueprints of one project to 5 different research groups, because of soft variables, one would expect to get 5 varying sets of raw data. Data management. If you gave one set of data to 5 different research groups and told them to formulate the tables, more than likely you would get 5 same sets of tables. And that's because data is math and math is absolute. What I'd like to share with you is a study in which the authors could not manage their own data. And if they couldn't manage the most manageable aspect of the research project, how can you trust their management of the project? And if that's the case, how can you trust the conclusions they draw? How did this occur? Well, we had data from their abstract, and we had data from their publication. Now, what I'd like to do is not tell you this story. I'd like you to walk with me in this story. And because of that, you will discover, you will find out where these data management issues occurred. You will discover them. And what's critical about that is then you will own these facts. And by owning them, you will be better able to determine for yourself the validity of the conclusion of the study. This study centered around periodontal regeneration, the reformation of cementum, bone, new connective tissue attachment fibers. This latter fiber attachment reinsertion into the root, that had been elusive in regeneration. It was critical to their study because they were going to use this study in support of FDA approval of their laser that was used in the treatment. Quickly, the study design was a laser opposed to a negative control root planing. Root planing classically does not cause regeneration. They had 6 teeth in each. 3 months between treatment and when they extracted the teeth for histologic sections. So you will see 2 tables, a clinical and a histologic table. And under the histology, you will see presence or absence of cementum, that golden ring now, new attachment, and bone. This was that study, presented at IADR in 2004, reference number 2411. The lead author is Dr. Raymond Yuckna. We have a clinical table, histologic table, and photomicrographs. Let's go look at the histologic table because that is the meat of this study. New cementum, one of the 3. We have root planing, and LANAP stands for Laser Assisted New Attachment Procedure. This is the laser group. Root planing. 1 out of 6 had presence of cementum, very little, an expected result. Laser. 6 out of 6 had new cementum presence, and they had about 1 millimeter. Very nice. Next on the table, that golden ring, new attachment. Root planing, 1/3 got new attachment, 2/3 for the laser. Now, what stands out to me as a periodontist, 2 things. Number 1, the root planing did so well. Normally, one would expect nothing, and it did quite well. The other thing was the laser didn't do that much greater in a study that was basically case reports. So for me, this data didn't cause me to think I am missing out by using this in my everyday practice on my patients. It's not convincing enough. 1 abstract, 6 teeth, not making it. New bone. 2/3 for root planing, all of the laser. A very expected result, given that infection is removed from the area. Bone does respond this way most often. Clinically, recession, probing, attachment levels, the groups, pre-treatment, post-treatment, and the change between pre and post. As this is a data video, I want to look at the data. And as I do, and as you do, I'll point out one issue. This number is incorrect. And you and I have not even been a part of the study. How do we know that? And this is math. 0.2, 0.1, that should be 0.1. There's an error in this table. Being an abstract, if it was never to become anything else, it doesn't bother me. But as you will see as this video unfolds, this is the beginning of layer upon layer of data management issues. Let's see. So this is a couple of years later. I'm reading in a trade journal, and this author says, well, using this therapy, 100% achieved new connective tissue attachment in that study. And I go, whoa, this guy misread that abstract. It was 2/3, not 100%. So I looked at his reference, his bibliography, and yes, they had made that abstract into a publication. Now, one thing about an abstract publication that many of us are familiar with is that you would think they would be mirror images, almost, unless some significant thing was done, such as remeasurement or adding specimens to the project. So I went to the histology table, and here we have it. Presence of cementum, root planing 1, laser 6. New bone, root planing 2, laser got 4. Ah, that golden ring, new connective tissue attachment. 1 for the root planing, and now 6 for the laser. That author had gotten the citation correct. 100% achieved the golden ring. How can that be? What happened? That's interesting. In something that one would expect to be mirror images. And notice the difference between root planing and the laser have now grown to a magnitude that substantiates the laser treatment. Before, it wasn't that big. It caused me to think about it. As a whole, 4 out of 6 of these digits have changed. We go to the clinical. Well, we notice the error is still there, but it's still incorrect. 0.2, 0.1, now it's 0.2. They haven't quite got there yet. The data points are still, 2 data points are different now. 1/6 of their data had changed. Again, on the surface, I wouldn't think much about it, but this is beginning to add up. What about a data point here? Think about what that represents. 6 single whole digit numbers. I dare say with a pencil on a pad of paper, we could all come up with all these averages, let alone a computer. And yet they managed to have a change in 1/6 of their data. They didn't go back and remeasure it. The change column. 3 more have errors in the addition across for a total of 4. That's a lot of blue circles. Using math, if you take the total number of digits on this table and the other, 24, 10 out of the 24 or 40% have either changed or are incorrect. At that time, I thought, I'd like to write a letter to the editor pointing this out. That is way too big for my comfort zone. So let me give you a timeline of just what I've said here. 2004, we have the abstract. 2007, the article. 2009, in the spring, I draft a letter. I send a copy of the draft to the lead author out of courtesy, just see what he might think. The fall of that year is the American Academy of Periodontology meeting. The lead author is speaking there on this very topic. Auditorium of 3,000 contemporary periodontists. He presents his material. This is the information on that. This is a code for the audio disc if you'd like to purchase it online. As is everything else that I present here today is public domain. So at the end of his presentation, there's a Q&A, and I asked the author, as you would, why the difference between a histology abstract and publication? Being that this video is talking about quality and management, I would not have said this, but he did say, we were kind of in a hurry-up mode like most people. It does speak to the issue. And if he does say, as you see in the video, I think he means it. So what about the histology? The abstract represents initial cuts. The blocks were reoriented and better cuts, I don't know why you didn't get good cuts the first time, but better cuts were obtained, and these were the basis for the publication. Well, I had never thought about that. He got one set of cuts for the abstract and one set of cuts for the publication. He went on to substantiate and affirm the answer by saying that that's why the pictures in the two were different, because they were different sets of cuts. I'll let you know, while I was walking up to that microphone, I had an idea of why the difference, and you will discover that same difference in a minute. So, I left the meeting. Okay, I finished the letter, sent it to the editor, who sent it to the author. The author responded. The text of my letter, and the author responded with 5 points. 3 to defend the points I made. 1 was an offensive statement. Why was this person picking my article? And the last statement is what I call the sleeper dust statement. Let's put things to rest and move on. So let me share those with you. First out of the gate, in the rush to publish. I'll leave that as it is. Second, histologic table differences were due to... I'm going to pause here, because I want to share with you a moment. I want you to feel the same moment. I'm walking up to the microphone. I think there's another reason. How would I know the reason why the difference? I wasn't a member of the research team. I had never used a laser. I'd never spoken to the author. You're walking with me. You are going to find the same thought that I had. You're going to discover. How did I do that? Data. Let's look at the data. So I looked. It just kept bothering me. So I kept thinking. Abstract. Publication, histology, cementum, 6 and 1, 6 and 1, cementum. That golden ring, new attachment, 4 and 2, 4 and 2, new bone. Whoa, new bone? That says new connective tissue attachment. New bone, connective tissue, 4, 4 and 2, 4. I pressed the button too early. They messed up the rows. If we change this to bone and this to connective tissue attachment, now we have the same tables. We're walking up to that microphone potentially with the answer to the question. Cementum, 6 and 1. Bone, 4 and 2. Bone, 4 and 2. Connective tissue attachment, 6 and 4. Connective tissue attachment, 6 and... Can you see that? 1. The tables are almost the same. That one number is different. I think we found the answer. The answer is they mislabeled the rows. But mislabeling the rows does not answer why this 4 went to a 1. And it has never been answered. Let me explain why that is important. If indeed this is the true table, and this is the true labeling of the rows, 6 and 4 up here, the golden ring, this is so close together, root planing and laser, that it negates the validity of the use of the laser. Now that the spread is greater, the magnitude of difference is greater, it just validates the use of the laser. Interesting. The change, mislabeling of the rows, does not answer why that change. You just discovered. We're walking up to the mic. We're going to ask the question. He says, remember, he said it was histology. Now we're at the written response. Well, let's see what it really was. Bing! Mislabeling of the rows. We were right. You discovered it. He carefully crafts the rest of the letter to say that made the table similar, which we already figured out. We said, oh, it looked the same, but no, they are similar. Notice the similarity between similar and the same. Nice alliteration. But similar and same are not the same. And I think that's a carefully chosen word because with this statement, the issue is put behind us because no one's fact checking. Now you own the facts. He goes on to say the new clinical table reflects a more careful evaluation of the clinical data. You already saw that the new table in the publication had more issues with it in error, data management issue, errors, or problems than the abstract did. This reflects a more careful evaluation? I don't think so. What were they? The data points were different. I can't explain that, but it's 1/6 of them. Again, but what about the change? 4 out of 6 are inaccurate. I thought about that. I kept thinking about it. I think there's a reason. Again, I have not participated in this project. I have not used a laser. And why might someone come up with an answer here? Because it's math. And math speaks the truth. Why these errors across here? You are going to discover. I suspect the errors are due to what I call the Excel factor. Excel being the Excel spreadsheet. Some may know that in that cubicle, 1 cube of an Excel spreadsheet, it's able to hold up to 14, 15 digits. What one does is we restrict the number of digits we want to see. But the cell doesn't throw away all the others we may have in there. It remembers them. But it does round up from the last digit that's unseen. So you do have a rounding issue. But it doesn't forget all the others. So let's see how that may have played into the data and how they reported it. So I'm going to take this bottom row, which is incorrect, 7653, and you all are doing the math in your head. That should be 23, not 24. Maybe this is what happened, so follow with me. I'm going to expand the number of digits we see in the cell, 6429, and the difference between these are 35. Now when we tell the machine, the computer, to limit what we see, this goes up to 6, does not round up. This goes up to 3, it rounds up. This goes up to 4 because it rounds up. And now we just incorporated an error into our data. Not our table, our data. Follow where this is going to go. So here we are looking at our Excel spreadsheet with the data summary. How did we get this into the table? Well, what they did then probably was go to a Word document. Construct the border of the Word document and the little squares where the numbers are going to go. Pre-treatment, let's see, 7-6. Post-treatment, 5-3. The change, 2-4. They just looked at this and trusted these numbers. They didn't do the math. What one should do is just put in the two averages, 7.6, 5.3, and then walk over here with a pencil and a pad of paper and do the math, and they would have done 2.3. That is what I suspect was the reason for all those differences. I don't think they know there's that many differences, and I don't think they've ever checked it or even found out why. The Excel factor. Now you own the facts. This is the offensive move by any author. So he says, I trust the author, meaning I, the author of the letter, has scrutinized every abstract article combination to the same degree. If not, then others and I have to wonder why he specifically selected this laser report for criticism. It's a nice statement. It sounds as if I did, so is a reason, there was a reason I selected this report. There wasn't. So I did not select this laser report for criticism. It selected itself based on everything you have seen and you now own. An offensive move. Now the sleeper statement. And the data in the full manuscript are what should be focused on. Notice he says manuscript. He doesn't mention the abstract. The sleeper statement. So here it is. The month this comes out. The binder's closed. The journal's placed on the third floor shelf of a library in some academic institute. And the issue is forever gone. The article goes on in perpetuity and it's quoted as fact, without ever seeing everything that you have seen. I was okay with that in principle. But what bothered me over a period of time is year after year after year, this study has been touted as one of the most monumental periodontal regeneration research projects in our profession. And when I think of all the great research leaders who have done regenerative work in the past and all their dedication and efforts, and they're calling this the most important paper with everything that you have seen, that bothered me. So I decided to resurrect the journal, pull it down, and put these facts in real time. That's why this video. So you will be better able to judge the quality of the results of their project. In summary then, 40% of their digits differed. Glaring issue between an abstract and an article. A new set of histologic slices. A made-up answer. One for the abstract, one for the publication. Put the audience to sleep. That's why the difference is in the pictures. If one goes back and does look at the pictures, the abstract, the article, and his presentation, they are all the same. It wasn't the histology. We now know that. You found that out. You suspected it when you walked up to the mic. He did later admit, it was a clerical error. And it made the tables similar, a sleeper statement. But what do you know? The fact. The fact is, one unanswered question. Why did the new connective tissue attachment in the root planing group go from 4 to 6 to 1 to 6? That change, for whatever reason, just validated their therapy. But that change is unrelated to mislabeling of the rows. At the AAP meeting, the author used the histologic table from the abstract and not the more current table from the publication. Let me frame this statement for you. This goes to project management, not data management, although it is about a table. Here you are, 2009, presenting the most monumental periodontal research paper in front of all your peers, 3,000 at an international meeting, AAP. And what one uses is the histologic table from the abstract, not the more current publication table, the more valid one, if one wants to say that. He hadn't bothered to update his presentation in 3 to 4 years. Management issues. The clinical table had multiple math errors, which you saw, and now you know why. And yet, the author said this reflected a more careful evaluation of the clinical data. A nice sleeper statement that puts everything behind you because the volume is closed and buried in the library. I wanted to bring the facts to life in a day-to-day basis now. The author apparently knew of this issue, so let me explain that statement. At the meeting, when I asked the question, he bantered back and forth about 3 times. And one of those banters, the author said, "Oh, you must be the one who sent me these very facts." At the time, I didn't register, but when I went back and listened to the audio and put everything together, it told me something. It told me he got the letter. It told me he read the letter. Now, if I were the author of this monumental article in the spring and got a letter like that, I'd look into it. I think all of us would. Yet by the fall of that year, he hadn't looked into it and thus made up an answer. Or the only other thing, he did look into it, but failed to disclose the true nature of the issue. Either of which is a project management issue, not a data issue. We see the data and project management issues of this entire article. Abstract to a publication. Can one determine the quality of the management of a research project? As you can see, the answer is yes. Looking at the data, the most manageable aspect of a research project. And why is it? Because data is math, and math speaks the truth. You have walked as I did. You have discovered, you own the facts. It's now up to you. Can you trust the results of this study? My name is Dr. John Sterrett, and I can be reached at sterrett@bellsouth.net, and I thank you for viewing this video.